Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I am here. I made it. It's been a morning. Yeah, we're going to possibly have a student boarding with us who will be attending one of the local schools, and so we had to meet with the person who is their agent from the country that they're coming from. And what they do is, if you've never had students before, they will talk about it, but we've had students before, just not with him. But also there's paperwork that you have to do. So that was being done. One of which is a police check, just to make sure that you don't have a criminal record that's going to cause problems, because they don't really want students, young people, to be staying with people who are in trouble with the police. Right, so that's it. I think I've got everything going. I'm feeling a little bit distracted because I've got a lot of wind noise in the chimney. Theodore is not too well at the moment. He's been throwing up from time to time, not all the time, just very occasionally, and he's looking a little bit sorry for himself, understandably. Nobody enjoys that sort of thing. Not really. If you do, then I have worries about you. What else? We're starting a new book, the Bobbsey Twins, because I said I was going to, and some of you probably aren't here yet, or you were here and I wasn't here, and so you went away again, because we're on daylight savings, and I totally forgot to tell you last time. We're not on daylight. We finished daylight savings. That's what it was I was going to say. Yeah, New Zealand went off daylight savings middle of the night between last night and the night before. So there you go. We're here. I made it. Hi, everybody. Let's make sure that chat is available for everybody to chat in. And then we can carry on. Right. So, the Bobbsey Twins, as you can see, my letterbox does not, my letterboard, lightbox, whatever, does not have lots of capital B's. It only has capital letters, by the way. So I've had to use 2 capital P's. Thankfully, it had 2 of them. It doesn't have a wide selection of letters with duplicates. So hence Bobbsey having been spelt with 2 apparently lowercase b's. Yeah, and if it's too distracting, I'll take it away. But I'm not going to do anything about it right at the moment. So we do have some keywords, snow and ghost. There was one word that's a little bit more in use than ghost, which is house, but I thought, ghost sounds a lot more interesting. Introduction to the Bobbsey Twins. Now, Stratemeyer is very good at laying out the sort of world that you've got with his books. I understand that, but just a little bit of background, because he was doing that for his books at the time they were published, which is a long time ago. As you can see here, 1904, the first of the Bobbsey Twins books. Apparently the longest running children's book series, 75 books. That's a lot in one series. The children do not age out. It's, as we will find out very soon, there are 2 sets of twins. They are fraternal twins, which means you can have a boy and a girl, and they are not identical. True identical twins are maternal twins, not fraternal twins, and they are the same gender at birth. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get fraternal twins that don't look alike. They can look alike, but they don't have the same tendency to look as identical. I have grown up knowing at least 2 sets of identical twins, and when you get to know people really well, especially once they get past being a child, their own life experiences start to show. So one of them got sick with something and the other one didn't at some stage. We could, as a family, we could tell the difference between the 2 of them, but a lot of people didn't. We weren't super close to them, but just being observant, you do start to notice slight differences, not just in haircut and things like that, but with the identical twins, a lot of people do have trouble with telling them apart. And often with that sort of closeness, having grown up with somebody with you at exactly the same age as you, it's not uncommon for identical twins to play with the fact that people can't tell them apart and get up to all sorts of hijinks. They are not duplicates of each other, personality-wise. Genetically, apparently they are, but in real life, no, they're not. They have different personalities, just like other people have different personalities to each other within the same family. You can have similarities. One family may develop everyone within one particular family may develop a particular style of sense of humour, which others from other families don't have quite so strongly, but that's usually more about the family culture rather than the genetics of the person. So it's a little bit of a gimmick in some ways, actually having a series of books with two sets of twins in them. In the first few books, they do actually age slightly. The first book starts with, I think the older twins are 8 years old and the younger ones are 4 years old. But after Stratemeyer realised that we're going to run out of age for these children if they keep growing up, which is why with most of his characters they don't. So he decided that no, they're going to get to a certain age and then they're going to stop at that. And so instead of them being 75 years old by the time they got to or 75 plus, whatever their starting age was, by the time you get to the last book, no, they're still 12 and 8. So, 12 and 6. So they don't stay the same difference apart in their ages. They start at 8 and 4, that's 4 years apart. And then when they stop aging in the series, they are 12 and 6, which is 6 years apart. So maybe they just found that the age range was a little bit different. It worked better when they were just that 2 years extra between them. Now, I first came across the Bobbsey Twins when I was at primary school, which you might call elementary school or first school or junior school or a bunch of other things like that. We had a library at our school. It was a lovely old building. It was the school was a lovely old building. And there was one particular room that prior to being the library had actually been 2 classrooms for the intermediate age children. That is the junior high age children, also known as intermediate if you're over in England, I think. I don't think it's middle school. It might be. I don't know. Anyway, so those, with the development of the schools in our area, they actually went from having the Form 1 and 2 kids, which are now year 7 and 8, grade 6 and 7, I guess. I don't know. The junior high kids, instead of being at the top level of the younger school, they took them and put them at the bottom level of the older school, which was the high school. So it went intermediate and secondary school all together in one school. And in rural places, that's not uncommon in New Zealand, where you have Form 1 to 7, which is year 7 and 8 through to year 13, all in one school campus as one operating system. So, yeah, and in the city, they have 3 separate age ranges for schools. So you have the junior one, the primary school, and then you have intermediate, and then you have secondary. In the early days, you would have intermediate with primary school, and then you'd have the secondary. Or if it's really small, then you'd have it all in one school. And then later on, they actually moved to having the intermediate as part of the secondary school because what they were dealing with in terms of the age of the kids and their behaviours and stuff like that, that was more appropriate. So I learned of them when I was still at primary school. That's the early one. The reason I told you about the schools is because those 2 classrooms had been for the oldest kids at the school, and then they changed it so those kids were going to be going to the college, the secondary school, and those 2 rooms were available as space within the junior school, the primary school. and they took out the wall between the two classrooms. So you had two main doors that went into the classroom as well as the fire escape on the other side. And they turned that into the school library. And it was wonderful because we actually had this lovely big space. And being an old school building, they actually had quite high ceilings and big windows that didn't have lots of sun coming into them for the library. And I remember exactly which shelves and whereabouts those shelves were in that room that I came across the Bobbsey Twins. They are designed as a series of books for little readers, not beginning readers, but the younger kids, not the early teens, which Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, Tom Swift, all those ones are designed for the older kids. The Bobbsey Twins were fitting the niche of the market that was younger than those ones. Stratemeyer, pretty smart in terms of running that side of the business. Here is a market, let's fill it with books that we provide. And so they did. The first few books are not mystery stories. They are just adventures of varying sorts, very gentle. The later books, because of the popularity of Hardy Boys and then later Nancy Drew, they actually did start to have mysteries in them. Not quite as intense as the mysteries in the older books that you get, the older age group books, naturally. But everybody was interested in mysteries. What happened? Why did it happen? Who did it? How? That sort of stuff. And so they might as well get on board and do that themselves as part of it. Right. So let's get on with it. Oh, I just realized I haven't got my tablet open. Must be a little bit weird having me talking to you at a different time of day. Thankfully not too different, just an hour. Now, once again, these books are set in some of the eastern states, one of the eastern states. I don't know which one because they don't tell us. Another fictional town. This one's called Lakeport. I know there is a lake when you just do a Google search. There's a Lakeport in California. It's not that one because it's in the eastern states, not the western states. Now, there actually is a Lakeport in Massachusetts. No, is it Massachusetts? No, New Hampshire. Massachusetts is next to New Hampshire, is below New Hampshire. And it could be that one. I don't know. But the town name is Lakeport. Then again, it could be up in the Finger Lakes area of New York State because so many others seem to be set there. So I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't know if they're going to give us any clues to it. Each of the books, they tend, in Stratemeyer Syndicate books, each of them tends to be based on totally fictional places, but those can be loosely based on real places. And sometimes it's quite interesting to actually have a look and see if you can find out a little bit more about the possibility of where it might be based on, because that can colour it. Now, the observant among you may have noticed this background behind me as being slightly familiar, but not quite. That's because it is. This is the background we used last time, and I just flipped it and changed the colour tone on it. Because it's eastern states, it's near a lake. This is, I can't remember what it was, but the one that we found out about last time that was probably the basis of where Tom Swift is based in the Tom Swift books. So might as well use it, reuse it. Anything else I need to tell you? Once again, the author is a pseudonym. They use ghostwriters. Well, ghostwriters implies where you have an author, like a famous name person, not necessarily normally an author, but like some famous person who decides they're going to write a book, and then a ghostwriter is the person who comes along and actually does a lot of the writing. maybe gets the person telling the stories and then records them, and then they're the person, the ghostwriter is the one who actually types it all out or puts it through a processor to make it into words on a page, but then actually resequences things, gets rid of plot holes and things like that. So that's generally what a ghostwriter is in normal usage. I can't remember what they call them for the Stratemeyer Syndicate ones, but they actually contracted to Stratemeyer Syndicate to produce books, and they were producing them fast, which is one of the objections that some of the schools had. Was just, one, they're series books, and they were pretty sneery about series books, and two was they can't be any good if you're producing them that fast, which is one of the accusations that was laid at the feet of Enid Blyton as well, because she was very prolific. Another one of those prolific authors. Some people just are, and some people, when they are writing, come up with systems where they can write very efficiently or dictate and then put it through a speech to text converter or something like that, and then they will employ somebody to do editing on the fly as they are doing it, as part of stuff that a lot of other authors would do themselves. So there are lots of different aspects of it. I wouldn't look down on a series book author, because they get words into people's heads, they get worlds into people's heads, and any of that actually is very, very good for you. So, the Bobbsey Twins. This is the first book in the series. I seem to recall a dust cover that was very like this one. It may have been this particular series dust cover. There's a lot of the books that Stratemeyer Syndicate did where they will have the title of the book, and then they will have the rest of the imaging on the cover will be the same. And then if it's cloth bound, they'll do the same, but it'll have a different look to what this is. Sometimes it'll be a medallion type of illustration, illustration in a circle, and then the title above and the author's name below. So with these ones here, they will put the title of the book. This one is obviously the Bobbsey Twins, and it's our introductory book. But then later on, they have a little bit more to it. The Bobbsey Twins at or on or doing something. The Bobbsey Twins go to, I don't know, New York. That sort of thing, where they'll actually have all those extra words in the title along the way, which makes sense. Anything else I need to tell you about that? No. So you will see a range if you are looking at old copies of the books or pictures online. You will see a range of different illustration styles, because they did get changed up from time to time, especially when it came to the ones where Stratemeyer's daughter, Harriet, said, this is not appropriate, we're going to rewrite it for these reasons. So in the earlier Bobbsey Twins books, just as forewarning for you, they do have 2 black staff members, 2 servants, a woman who works in the house and a man who works about the house. They are probably going to be quite racist in the descriptions and the ways they talk, because that was considered okay and normal back in the day, and that is one of the things that she tried to address. Unfortunately, in the process, she also rewrote the stories for a lot of them, and they are, in some of them, almost unrecognizable. She didn't just adjust use of language and attitude about stereotypes and things like this. She also made story changes that a lot of people are a bit ticked about. I'm not reading any of the newer ones just because they're not public domain, and I don't know if they're any good or not. I have heard lots of things about the way she approached it, a bit of a bull in a china shop, if you want to put it that way. I know that you guys are in ads, but we're going to carry on and actually start reading, because why not, especially when there's only 2 of us here. Maybe the others will catch us a bit later on. The Bobbsey Twins, or, because they have subtitles, or Merry Days Indoors and Out. Do not expect this to be a thrilling story, okay? So if you found the adrenaline in Tom Swift, as well as the rage baiting that was going on in it, a little bit too much, this is probably going to be a little bit more calm and incidental adventures along the way. Merry Days Indoors and Out. Here we go. By Laura Lee Hope, author of The Bobbsey Twins in the Country, The Bobbsey Twins at the Seashore. There you go. This edition that Project Gutenberg has produced is based on as the book was published by Grosset and Dunlap, who is not actually the first publisher of the Bobbsey Twins. But a lot of the Stratemeyer Syndicate books went to Grosset and Dunlap, even if they didn't originally. There you go, copyright 1904 by the Mershon Company, Mershon, and they were a publisher at the time. There is actually an illustration, but it's not letting me even... Oh, why did you do that? It's not even letting me expand the illustration, because usually it does, or maybe it is. Nope, I can't even tap on it to enlarge it. I'll show you. It's kids sliding down a hill on toboggans, and somebody's watching them. Normally I can actually... Each of the books in Project Gutenberg is handled differently. It depends on when it was produced. Normally I can tap on it and it will pop open, or I can actually expand it. And the caption on that is, "Down the long hill swept the two sleds," and it's from page 45. Oh, wow, 75 stream streak. LXXV, 75, because L is 50, 60, 70, because the two X's, that's 10 and 10, and then V, which is 5. They're not actually the letters, that's the symbols used by the Romans for those numbers. 75, wow, that's a big streak. So at least you and I are here. We've both got the streak going, haven't we? Right, the Bobbsey Twins. Bobbsey Twins at home, and apparently we've got chapter numbers and titles. We will see if it actually carries through. Chapter 1, the Bobbsey Twins at home. Yay, I like it when we've got chapter numbers and titles. The Bobbsey Twins were very busy that morning. They were all seated around the dining room table making sorry, my glasses are not... They're clean-ish, fairly clean. I'm having a hard time seeing through them where my book is. I'm wondering if I've got my chair at a slightly different distance. As you age, your eyes are become less flexible. And one of the impacts of that is that they don't adapt to changing distances as well. Let's see if that helps. The Bobbsey Twins were very busy that morning. They were all seated around the dining room table making houses and furnishing them. And yes, moving the chair a little bit closer helped. The houses were being made out of pasteboard shoeboxes. We would now call it cardboard. Pasteboard shoeboxes, and had square holes cut in them for doors and other long holes for windows, and had pasteboard chairs and tables and bits of dress goods for carpets and rugs, and bits of tissue paper stuck up to the windows for lace curtains. 3 of the houses were long and low, but Bert had placed his box on one end and divided it into 5 stories, and Flossie said it looked exactly like a department house in New York, and that's with quotation marks, and I think she's meaning an apartment building, and she's probably confusing it with department, like department stores, because New York's, they're thinking of the city. This is part of why I feel that these sort of references are part of why I feel that a lot of these books are actually set in New York State. There were 4 of the twins. Now that sounds funny, doesn't it? But you see, there were 2 sets. Bert and 4 of the twins. That's what they mean. Yeah, as in, no, it's not called twins when there's 4. That's because it's 2 sets of twins. But you see, there were 2 sets. Bert and Nan, aged 8, and Freddie and Flossie, aged 4. Nan was a tall and slender girl with a dark face and red cheeks. Her eyes were a deep brown, and so were the curls that clustered around her head. Bert was indeed a twin, not only because he was the same age as Nan, but because he looked so very much like her. I think maybe they didn't understand about the genetics of twinning back then. To be sure, he looked like a boy while she looked like a girl, but he had the same dark complexion, the same brown eyes and hair, and his voice was very much the same, only stronger. So what are your guesses? Is it Mum who has the darker colouring, or is it Dad in the story? No, you are not allowed to choose that it was the milkman or the postman or anyone else. Mum and Dad, that's the only ones we're dealing with, because this is a family children's book. Freddie and Flossie were just the opposite. He looked like a boy. Shame, that's actually a good one to call. She looked like a girl. I think back in those days, they just didn't think about some of the words that came out of their mouths. We're definitely drinking from the shame bottle for that one. Thank you for calling it. I shouldn't try and talk while I'm drinking. Freddie and Flossie were just the opposite of their larger brother and sister. Each was short and stout, as in they're not toddlers, but they're young kids. They haven't yet grown out of their puppy fat. They're still a little bit more dumpy, because that's the way you feed little children, so they have energy available for them as they are growing. I have a friend who actually started fainting when she stood up because she was going through a growth spurt. She was also quite athletic and didn't have any very, very little fat on her, and so therefore she was depleting her energy a lot quicker than what she was taking it in a lot of ways. And the doctor just sort of said, you need to move a little bit slower and you need to eat more. Excuse me. So hence the short and stout, and also stout in this sort of context. They didn't usually think of that as being a particularly negative comment on somebody. It just meant that they were slightly heavier looking, a little bit more chunky. I'm stout. With a fair round face, light blue eyes, and fluffy golden hair, so they're blonde blue-eyed. Sometimes Papa Bobbsey called Flossie his little fat fairy, which always made her laugh, but Freddie didn't want to be called a fairy, so his papa called him the fat fireman, which pleased him very much and made him rush around the house shouting, "Fire, fire, clear the track for number 2, play away, boys, play away," in a manner that seemed very lifelike. I don't get that as a reference for fire trucks to be calling that out. So anyway, during the past year, Freddie had seen 2 fires, and the work of the firemen had interested him deeply. The Bobbsey family lived in the large town of Lakeport, situated at the head of Lake Metoka, Metoka. Please, somebody see if there is actually such a place, or somewhere that has a similarly spelled lake, with a town at one end of it. A clear and beautiful sheet of water upon which the twins loved to go boating. Mr. Richard Bobbsey was a lumber merchant. Oh, we don't have a banker or a lawyer or a reporter or a newspaper man. Ooh, this is different. Lumber merchant. Okay, so he's a merchant, so he owns a business. But still, this is a little bit unusual for these guys. Stratemeyer tends to make their main human characters, ignoring Uncle Wiggily, make their main human characters upper middle class, so that they have money for doing whatever it is that is required for the adventures they have, like the Hardy Boys. Nancy Drew has a car. The Hardy Boys have motorbikes and cars and things, boats. Tom Swift, he's an inventor. He has enough money to build things, to tinker around, to not have to make money off the things he's building, although he does actually do it, does make money off them. Mr. Richard Bobbsey was a lumber merchant with a large yard and docks on the lake shore, and a saw and planing mill close by. The house was 1/4 of a mile away on a fashionable street, and had a small but nice garden around it, and a barn at the rear, in which the children loved to play at times. 1904, they would have had horses. So therefore, yes, you would have had a barn if you had a sizable enough property and house. Talked about a small garden, probably not as small as you or I would think. I'm going to cut out a fancy table cover for my parlour table, said Nan. It's going to be the finest table cover that ever was. Nice as Aunt Emily's? Questioned Bert. She's got a dandy, all worked in roses. This is going to be white like the lace window curtains, said Nan. While Freddie and Flossie watched her with deep interest, she took a small square of tissue paper and folded it up several times. Then she cut curious-looking holes in the folded piece with a pair of sharp scissors. So this is like as kids making paper snowflakes. When the paper was unfolded once more, a truly beautiful pattern appeared. "Oh, how lovely!" screamed Flossie. "Make me one, Nan." "And me too," put in Freddie. "I want a real red one." And he brought forth a bit of red pinwheel paper he had been saving. "Oh, Freddie, let me have the red paper for my stairs," cried Bert, who had had his eyes on the sheet for some time. "No, I want a table cover, like Nanny. You take the white paper." "Whoever said saw white paper on a stairs? I mean white carpet," said Flossie. I'll give you a marble for the paper, Freddie," continued Bert. A gift of a toy marble, little glass ball. But Freddie shook his head. "Want a table cover, nice as Aunt Emily," he answered. "Going to set a flower on the table too," he added, and ran out of the room. When he came back, he had a flower pot in his hand, half the size of his house, with a feather duster stuck in the dirt for a flower. Yeah, don't think that's going to fit on the table in this little house made out of shoe boxes. Did you ever make models, buildings using boxes, especially shoe boxes? We didn't get shoe boxes very often, so it was always, I'd read about this sort of thing. It's like, how have they got shoe boxes? Where do you get shoe boxes from? We don't get shoes often enough for that. This is blue flavoured. It doesn't look blue flavoured though. We'll carry on. "Well, I declare," said Nan, and burst out laughing. "Oh, Freddie, how will we ever set that on such a little pasteboard table?" "Can set it there," declared the little fellow, and before Nan could stop him, the flower pot went up and the pasteboard table came down and was mashed flat. "Hello, Freddie's breaking up housekeeping," cried Bert. "Oh, Freddie, do take the flower pot away," came from Flossie. I can see we're going to have troubles with this book. So Flossie was talking baby talk before, and now she's talking older sister talk. "Oh, Freddie, do take the flower pot away. It's too big to go onto the house." This is from the same child who was, using baby talk before. Okay. Freddie looked perplexed for a moment. Oh, by the way, this one is, in theory, possibly written by Edward Stratemeyer himself, which may explain it. I don't know. Well, worst case scenario, it's a new book / series next stream. I don't think it's going to be as bad as Swiss Family Robinson, but we'll see. Freddie looked perplexed for a moment. "Going to play garden around the house. This is a lilac tree," and he set the flower pot down close to Bert's elbow. Close to Bert's elbow. We know what's going to happen, don't we? 8 Ball, is this a SFR? Is it SFR bad? Swiss Family Robinson bad. The 8 Ball says, "Was that even English?" Exactly. Yeah, right, indeed. You set the flower pot down next to Bert's elbow. Bert was now busy trying to put a pasteboard chimney on his house and did not notice. A moment later, Bert's elbow hit the flower pot and down it went on the floor, breaking into several pieces and scattering the dirt over the rug. "Oh, Bert, what have you done?" cried Nan in alarm. "Get the broom and the dustpan before Dinah comes." So Dinah's the household servant. It was Freddie's fault. Oh, my lilac tree is all gone, cried the little boy, and the boiler to my fire engine too, he added, referring to the flower pot which he had used the day before when playing fireman. At that moment, Dinah the cook came in from the kitchen. Well, I declare to gracious, she exclaimed, if you children ain't gone and messed up the floor again. And no, I am not reading it exactly as written. I'm reading normal words, because that's just too racist. Can a one sentence prior to the event even count as foreshadowing? I don't know. But remember, Stratemeyer's idea was to get kids reading. And one way to do that is to have the reader feel like they know more than the protagonists of the story. That sense of superiority. I'm going to read it and find out if they figure it out, because I'm cleverer than them if they don't figure it out straight away, sort of thing. That's what happens with Hardy Boys things. And this anticipation thing is likely to be what happens in these ones for the younger kids. Bert broke my boiler, said Freddie, and began to cry. Oh, never mind, Freddie. There are plenty of others in the cellar, declared Nan. It was an accident, Dinah, she added to the cook. Stratemeyer, talk down to the readers, but don't belittle them. Yeah, exactly. And also, this is the era when adults thought that kids were stupid. Literally.
Usually the other way round.
Kids think that adults are stupid.
No. As to who is stupid and who isn't.
Oh, as to who actually is stupid and who isn't. Yeah, PJ's just chipping in.
I say this as now an adult.
As now an adult, yeah. I'm just going to turn that round so I'm not actually drinking from the bit where the split is on the can. On the cover of the can. Right. Everything in this house that happens is an accident, grumbled the cook, went off to get the dustpan and broom. As soon as the mess was all cleared away, very old, stick to your job, coffee boy, argue with me when you become coffee man, says Goriki in quotation marks. Actually, yeah, superhero, coffee man. Hang on, I've got a mug here somewhere. It's got stuff in it. Beg your pardon? No, I've got an energy drink here. But thank you for the offer. I need to write down coffee man. I think a lot of people would be happy if there was such a superhero. Oh, having a bad day? Coffee man to the rescue. Right, where do we get to? The cook went off to get the dustpan and broom. As soon as the mess had been cleared away, Nan cut out the red table cover for Freddie, which made him forget the loss of the lilac tree and the boiler. Let us make a row of houses, suggested Flossie. She's 4. Bert's big house can be at the head of the street, and this suggestion was carried out. Fortunately, more pasteboard boxes were to be had, and from these they made shade trees and some benches. And Bert cut out a pasteboard horse and cart. To be sure, the horse did not look very lifelike, but they all played it was a horse, and that was enough. When the work was complete, they called Dinah in to admire it, which she did, standing near the doorway, with her hands resting on her hips. And no, I'm not reading out the way it was written. I do declare it looks most tremendous real, said the cook. It's a wonder to me you children can make such things. We learned it in the kindergarten class at school, answered Nan. 8. Kindergarten class is 6, isn't it? I'm guessing she's remembering to entertain her younger brother and sister, or younger sister and brother. Don't know. Oh, by the way, snow and ghost. Don't forget, these are our keywords up here. Snow and ghost. Although we haven't got to them yet. Yes, in kindergarten, put in Flossie. But we don't make fire engines there, came from Freddie. So, no, kindergarten class is not 6, because they're talking about it like they go. At this, Dinah began to laugh, shaking from head to foot. Fire engines, am it? Freddie, reckon you're going to be a fireman when you're a man, hey? Yes, I'm going to be a real fireman, was the ready answer. And what are you going to be, Master Bert? I'm going to be a soldier, said Bert. I want to be a soldier too, put in Freddie. A soldier and a fireman. Oh dear, I shouldn't want to be a soldier and kill folks, said Nan. Girls can't be soldiers, answered Freddie. They have to be married or be dressmakers or stenographers or something like that. He's actually said stenographers, but I'm been just adjusting at language slightly to make it readable or palatable. And this one actually did get corrected in the story. You mean stenographers, not stenographers. I'm going to be a stenographer when I get big. I'm guessing that was Nan. I don't want to be a stenographer, put in Flossie. I'm going to keep a candy store and have all the candy I want. And ice cream. Me too, burst in Freddie. I'm going to have a candy store and be a fireman and a soldier all together. Dear, dear, laughed Dinah. Just to hear that now, it's wonderful what you're going to be when you're big. At that moment, the front doorbell rang and all rushed to the hallway to greet their mother, who had been downtown on a shopping tour. Not a world I'm used to, where you ring your own doorbell to come in. You either open the door or you get the key out and open the door. Okay, that was chapter 1. How are we doing? We're not drinking lots of water yet. We'll get there. And let's wait for everyone to arrive in 20 minutes' time. We'll welcome them, eh? And don't forget, I've also got this image here. This one here. I've put that online. I'm trying to think if I actually put it on the Discord server. But I definitely put it online on social media sites. Just so people couldn't say, I didn't know. Oh, they can if they want to, but at least I had some sort of information there, even if I forgot to tell everybody last stream. Chapter 2, Rope Jumping and What Followed. Oh, Mama, what have you bought? Such was the cry from all of the Bobbsey twins as they gathered around Mrs. Bobbsey in the hallway. She had several small packages in her hands, and one looked very much like a box of candy. Mrs. Bobbsey kissed them all before speaking. Have you been good while I was gone? She asked. I guess we tried to be good, answered Bert meekly. Freddie's boiler got broke, that's all, said Flossie. Dinah swept up the dirt. Before anything more could be said, all were in the dining room, and Mrs. Bobbsey was called upon to admire the row of houses. Then the box of candy was opened, and each received a share. Now, you had better go out and play, said the mother. Dinah must set the table for dinner, but be sure and put on your thick coats. It's very cold and feels like snow. Keyword. We have one for that. Snow. I hope you've got your water all topped up, ready to go. Look, I've removed the tide. I'm dripping on myself because I filled it up. I removed all the extra marks on it just because we're starting a new book. That was for snow. Let's hope it's not too snowy. It's very cold and feels like snow, which I just drank. Oh, if only it would snow, said Bert. I'm quite surprised Mr. Stratemeyer didn't say, oh, if only it would fall down, that cold fluffy stuff, because we're not allowed to say the same word again within 2 paragraphs of each other. He was anxious to try a sled he had received the Christmas before. It was Saturday, with no school, so all of the boys and girls of the neighbourhood were out. Some of the girls were skipping rope, and Nan joined these, while Bert went off to join a crowd of boys in a game of football, because back then girls could only do certain things and boys could only do other certain things, because that was the way it was, apparently. "Let us play horse," suggested Freddie to Flossie. "Let us play horse." What 4-year-old says that sort of thing? Let's play horse. Let us play horse. They had reins of red leather with bells, and Freddie was the horse, while his twin sister was the driver. "I'm a bad horse. I'll run away if you don't watch me," cautioned Freddie, and began to prance around wildly against the grape arbor and then up against the side fence. "Whoa, whoa!" screamed Flossie, jerking on the reins. "Whoa, you naughty horse! If I had a whip, I'd beat you." "If you did that, I'd kick," answered Freddie, and began to kick real hard into the air. But at last he settled down and ran around the house just as nicely as any horse could. Then he snorted and ran up to the water bucket near the barn, and Flossie pretended to give him a drink and some hay and unharnessed him, just as if he were a real steed. We've used horse I don't know how many times, and so now we have steed. I'm glad I didn't choose the word horse. Nan was counting while another girl named Grace Levine jumped. Grace was a great jumper and had already passed 40 when her mother called to her from the window. "Grace, don't jump so much, you'll get sick." "Oh, no, I won't," said Grace. She was a headstrong girl and always wanted her own way. "But jumping gave you a headache only last week," continued Mrs. Levine. "Now don't do too much of it." And then the lady closed the window and went back to her interrupted work. "Oh dear, Mamma made me trip," sighed Grace. "I don't think that was fair." "But your Mamma doesn't want you to jump any more," put in another girl, Nellie Parks by name. "Oh, she didn't say that. She said not to jump too much." It was now Nan's turn to jump because they're playing jump rope, remember? And she went up to 27 and then tripped. Nellie followed and reached 35. The 4-year-old did better than the 8-year-old. Then came another girl who jumped to 56. "I'm going 100 this time," said Grace as she skipped into place. "Oh, Grace, you'd better not," cried Nan. "You're afraid I'll beat you," declared Grace. "No, I'm not, but your Mamma said—" "I don't care what she said. She didn't forbid my jumping," cut in the obstinate girl. "Are you going to turn or not?" So this is where you've got a girl at each end holding a rope and flicking it round, and then somebody standing in the middle and doing the jumping. So they're not actually doing it for themselves, not turning the rope. "Yes, I'll turn," replied Nan, and at once the jumping started. Soon Grace had reached 40, then came 50, and then 60. "I do believe she will reach 100 after all," declared Nellie Parks a little enviously. "I will if you turn steadily," answered Grace in a panting voice. Her face was strangely pale. "Oh dear. Oh, Grace, hadn't you better stop?" questioned Nan. She was a little frightened, but nevertheless kept on turning the rope. "No," puffed Grace. Go on." She had now reached 85. Nellie Parks was counting. 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. She went on. 91, 92. Not so fast," panted Grace. Oh! And just as Nellie was counting 97, she sank down in a heap with her eyes closed and her face as white as a sheet. For a moment the other girls looked on in blank wonder, not knowing what to make of it. Then Nan gave a scream. "Oh, girls, she's fainted!" "Perhaps she's dead," burst out Nellie Parks. "And if she is, we killed her, for we turned the rope." "Oh, Nellie, please don't say that," said Nan. She could scarcely speak the words. "Shall I go and tell Mrs. Levine?" asked another girl who stood near. "No, yes," answered Nan. She was so bewildered she scarcely knew what to say. "Oh, isn't it awful?" They gathered close around the fallen girl, but nobody dared to touch her. While they were there and one had gone to tell Mrs. Levine, a gentleman came up. It was Mr. Bobbsey, coming home from the lumber yard for lunch. "What's the trouble?" he asked, and then he saw Grace. What happened to her? Goody, he's making me suggestions in Discord. Instead of having keywords, having key phrases. We will have to talk about this. What's the trouble? What happened to her? She was jumping rope and couldn't jump anymore, sobbed Nan. "Oh, Papa, she isn't dead, is she?" Mr. Bobbsey was startled, and with good reason, for he had heard of more than one little girl dying from too much jumping. He took the limp form up in his arms and hurried to the Levine house with it. "Run and tell Dr. Brisket," he called back to Nan. Brisket is a cut of beef. Except it doesn't usually have two T's at the end. The physician mentioned lived but a We've just used the word doctor as his title, so we can't use it again. The physician who mentioned lived but a short block away, and Nan ran as fast as her feet could carry her. The doctor had just come in from making his morning calls and had his hat and overcoat still on. "Oh, Dr. Brisket." Brisket, not brisket. Yeah, try to turn it into a surname. The doctor had just come in from making his morning calls and had his hat and overcoat still on. "Oh, Dr. Brisket, do come at once," she sobbed. "Grace Levine is dead, and we did it, turning the rope for her." "Grace Levine? Dead?" repeated the dumbfounded doctor. Yes, Brisket, okay. "Why?" "Where is she?" "Papa just carried her into her house." Without waiting to hear more, Dr. Brisket ran toward the Levine residence, around which quite a crowd had now collected. In the crowd was Bert. "Is Grace really dead?" he asked. I guess so," answered Nan. "Oh, Bert, it's dreadful. I was turning the rope and she had reached 97 when all at once she sank down and—" Nan could not go on, but leaned on her twin brother's arm for support. "I thought these were going to be gentle stories." "You girls are crazy to jump rope so much," put in a big boy, Danny Rugg by name. Danny was something of a bully, and very few of the girls liked him. "Yeah. Yes, it is. Much worse," retorted Danny. "No, sorry, I missed a line." "It's no worse than playing football," said a big girl. "Yes, it is. Much worse," retorted Danny. "Rope jumping brings on heart disease. I heard Father tell about it." I don't know how much science is going to come into this book. I have concerns if this is science. "I hope Grace didn't get heart disease," sobbed Nan. "You turned the rope," went on Danny maliciously. "If she dies, they'll put you in prison, Nan Bobbsey." "They shan't do it," cried Bert, coming to his sister's rescue. "I won't let them." "Much you can stop 'em, Bert Bobbsey, can't I?" "No, you can't." "I'll see if I can't," answered Bert, and he gave Danny such a look that the latter edged away, thinking he was going to be attacked. Dr. Brisket had gone into sounds like those barbecue fake coal things, except they're briquettes. Brisket. Briquette. Dr. Brisket had gone into the house, and the crowd hung around impatiently waiting for news. The excitement increased, and Mrs. Bobbsey came forth, followed by Freddie and Flossie, who had just been finished playing horse. Nan, what can it mean?" said Mrs. Bobbsey. "Oh, Mamma," murmured Nan, and sank limp and helpless into her mother's arms. Just then Mr. Bobbsey came forth from the Levine residence. Seeing his wife supporting their daughter, he hurried in that direction. "Grace is not dead," he announced. "She had a fainting spell, that is all, but I think after this she had better leave rope skipping alone." Oh, it was such a dangerous thing. People do it as a health thing. That was the end of the chapter, by the way. Where did that come from? The whole idea that somebody might faint or die from jumping rope. Such a weird thing to decide that you're going to have that as a feature at this stage of a story. Very peculiar. Yes, I can't show it to you today because it's not green, hence the sleeve. Right. Same place as don't swallow watermelon seeds or one will grow inside you. Yeah, that sounds like it to me. Whoever it was who said that has never thrown up. I know this is a family-friendly channel, but this is a family thing that happens. People throw up, and when they do, they discover that what they throw up is quite acidic, and plants don't like that much acid. So whoever said that, I think they were just a parent trying to tell their kids not to swallow the seeds in case it did cause indigestion or something. But yeah, telling stories to control behaviour is not ideal. Some parents have always understood that, and some of them only figure that one out long after their kids are past the age of telling them, don't do this because type stories. Anyway, let's ignore all that and we'll carry on. Chapter 3, the first snowstorm. And that is written down in here, so that means I have to drink it, and so do you. Ah, we haven't had a tip video. Let's have a tip video after I've had this drink of water. Who are we going to have today?
Oh, good day. We've stumbled across the raccoons in his stream viewing habitat. Let's watch as he learns how to better enjoy the stream and make the most of his viewing experience. Let's see. According to the video, there are 6 or 7. Number 1 would appear to be hydrate. We have our hydration right here. It's important to stay hydrated. It's good mentally and physically, and it's good for your vocal cords, other parts of your body, your mind. And that brings us to number 2. When the streamer does drink, you drink as well. Oh, what's this now? Oh, drinking. Drink. Did you drink now? Oh, you can indicate so by putting the water bottle emoji or thumbs up in chat. Next one, snacks. Ah, raccoons has snacks. There appears to be trail mix and what's that? Carrot cake. Ooh, that looks yummy. Oh, I guess we can't have any. Number 4. Is to get comfy. Well, Raccoons has his lucky blanket right here, and Raccoons also has a teddy. Who can say no to that? Don't you have a teddy? Maybe a different kind of plushie. Being comfy is good for the mind. Number 5, something to write with or write on, because you never know when you might need to look something up later. We have 2 sizes of pads right over there, 2 pens in case one has really bad ink. Good job, Raccoons. Oh, on second thought, never mind. And that brings us to our final point, which is participate in chat. You can do things like type in chat, chat with other people in chat, use commands, play Jev Bingo. Raccoons has his own Jev Bingo card right here. You can spend pages and do things like forcing Jev to wear silly things on her head like headbands, crowns, unicorn horns, and perhaps one day even something like the one that's about to appear, if I remember correctly, unless it hasn't. Did it already happen? Oh. Oh, and you can make clips, you can submit quotes. Just try to enjoy the stream. Ah, there's another headband. There we go. So that should do it. Enjoy the stream, and I'm going to help myself to some of that trail mix. Or not. Ah!
Right, and we're back. I hope you are ready with your water and your snacks and ways to do all the other things. Right. Chapter 3, the first snowstorm, and I'm not drinking that one again because I just drank it before we had the video. Nan felt greatly relieved to learn that Grace was not dead. Yeah, you would. Oh, Mamma, I am so glad, she said over and over again. I am glad too, answered Mrs. Bobbsey. Her mamma has told her several times not to jump so much. Yes, I heard her. Nan's eyes dropped. I was wicked to turn the rope for her. In the end, Nan told her mother the whole story, to which Mrs. Bobbsey listened very gravely. It was certainly wrong, Nan, she said. After this, I hope my little girl will try to do better. I shall try, answered Nan. Excuse me, I've got the burps now because energy drinks always seem to make me burp, and usually they're a bit fizzy. It was long after the dinner hour before the excitement died away. Then it was learned that Grace was resting quietly in an easy chair, and the doctor had ordered that she be kept quiet for several days. She was very much frightened and had told her parents that she would never jump rope again. The time was the fall of the year. It was long after it was the time was the fall of the year, and that Saturday evening there was a feeling of snow in the air, stronger than ever. Snow. Oh, if only it would snow, came from Bert several times. I like winter better than anything. I don't, answered Nan. Think of the nice flowers we have in the summer. You can't have much fun with flowers, Nan. Yes, you can, and think of the birds. I like the summer, piped in Freddie, because then we go to the country where the cows and the chickens are. Yes, and gather eggs, put in Flossie, who had gathered eggs many times during the summer just past, while on a visit to their uncle Daniel Bobbsey's farm at Meadowbrook. All of the Bobbsey children thought Meadowbrook the finest place in the country. In the world. Bert's wish for snow was soon gratified. Let's get snow out of the way in the first few chapters. Sunday morning found it snowing steadily, the soft flakes coming down silently and covering the ground to the depth of several inches. Winter has come after all, cried the boy. Wish it was Monday instead of Sunday. Why do you think he said that? Wished it was Monday instead of Sunday. I just realised I haven't got my phone on charge, and I need to because it was getting a bit low before. Go on. Day off school. If it was a snow day, possibly. And in addition, I think, because they probably aren't allowed to do that sort of play on a Sunday. In the old days, you couldn't. You were not allowed to have fun on Sundays. It's naughty. Don't do that. Boring, isn't it? I'm glad we don't live back then. Despite the storm, missed a bit because we had just turned over the page. I'll go back. Winter has come after all. Wish it was Monday instead of Sunday. The snow is not quite deep enough for sleighing yet, said Father. Despite the storm, all attended church in the morning, and the 4 children and Mrs. Bobbsey went to Sunday school in the afternoon. The lady taught a class of little girls and had Flossie as one of her pupils. The lady? Mum? I guess. Yeah, back in this era, most people went to church on Sundays. It wasn't about what you believed or not, it was just what you did. To the children, travelling back and forth through the snow was great sport, and Bert couldn't resist the temptation to make several snowballs and throw them at the other boys. The other boys threw them back in return, and Bert's hat was knocked off. This is for 2 drinks. Snowballs. Bert, this will not do on Sunday, said Mrs. Bobbsey, and there the snowballing came to an end. It was about the fun. All through the night the snow continued to come down, and on Monday morning it was over a foot deep. The air was crisp and cold, and all the children felt in the best of spirits. Nan and Bert can go to school, said Mrs. Bobbsey, but I think Freddie and Flossie had better stay home. Walking would come too hard on them. I want to go out in the snow, cried Freddie. I don't want to stay indoors all day. You shall go out later on in the garden, replied their mother. They can watch Sam shovel off the snow, put in Mr. Bobbsey. Sam was the man of all work. He and Dinah the cook were married and lived in some pleasant rooms over the stable. Lovely. They ought to have pleasant rooms. If you are going to have someone live in and work for you, you shouldn't treat them as slaves. You should treat them as fellow people. Yes, let's watch him, cried Flossie. Just 10% snows away from needing a hamster bottle. Well, at least we've still got plenty in there. I'm trying not to take too big a sips. Yes, let us watch him, cried Flossie, and soon she and Freddie were at the window watching the man as he banked up the snow on either side of the garden walk and the sidewalk. Once Sam made a motion as if to throw a shovelful of snow at the window, and this made them dodge back in alarm and then laugh heartily. Got to be careful with that sort of thing, because glass back then was a lot more fragile than it is now, because they hadn't perfected the techniques for making consistent thicknesses. We've sharpened up how we do that. The school was only a few blocks away from the Bobbsey home, but Nan and Bert had all they could do to reach it, for the wind had made the snow drift, so that in some spots it was very deep. Better look out or we'll get it over our heads. Get in over our heads, cried Bert. Oh, Bert, wouldn't it be terrible to have such a thing happen, answered his twin sister. How would we ever get out? Yeah, don't accidentally go down someone's front steps. The ones where you've got an apartment house, a house that's right up to the footpath, the pavement, and then the steps that go down to the rooms that are underneath. Don't accidentally go down some of those in the snow. It'll definitely be over your head. How would we ever get out? Ring the alarm and have the street cleaning men dig us out, he said merrily. Do you know, Nan, that I just love the snow? It makes me feel like singing and whistling, and he broke into a merry whistle. I think Mr. Stratemeyer decided that he was going to break his own rules about reusing a word in this chapter. I love it because it looks so white and pure. Bert. They were speedily joined by a number of other boys and girls, all bound for school. Some of the girls were having fun, washing each other's faces, and it was not long before Nan had her face washed too. The cold snow on her cheek and ear did not feel very nice, but she took the fun in good part and went to washing like the rest. Not something I've particularly experienced or want to. The boys were already snowballing each other, some on one side of the street, some snowballing each other, some on one side of the street and some on the other. The snowballs were flying in all directions, and Bert was hit on the back and on the shoulder. I don't know if the word counter I used counts these compound words or not in the one word counting. I'll pay you back, he cried to Charlie Mason, who had hit him in the back, and he let fly a snowball which landed directly on Charlie's neck. Some of the snow went down Charlie's back and made him shiver from the cold. How are you doing? We're about a third of the way down at least. It should count unique solo words. Okay. Well, I'm drinking for all of these compound words as well, okay? Just because if you're going to for snowing, then you might as well count snowball because they're written as one word. I wouldn't stand that, Charlie, said Danny Rugg, who was close at hand. I'd pitch into him if I were you. You pitch into him, grumbled Charlie. You can throw awfully straight. Danny prided himself on his throwing, which, however, was no better than the throwing of the other lads, and he quickly made 2 hard snowballs. With these in hand, he ran out into the street and waited until Bert's hands were empty. Then he came up still closer and threw one of the snowballs with all his might. It struck Bert in the back of the head and sent him staggering. "Hi, how do you like that?" roared Danny in high glee. "Have another?" And as Bert stood up and looked around, he let drive again, this time hitting Bert directly in the ear. No, I don't like that. The snowball was so hard it made Bert cry out in pain. "For shame, Danny Rugg, to hit Bert so hard as that," cried Nan. "Oh, you keep still, Nan," Bobbsey retorted Danny. "This is our sport, not yours. But you shouldn't have come so close before you threw that snowball." "I know what I'm doing," growled the big boy, running off. The whack in the ear made that member ache. No, made his ear hurt. And Bert did not feel near so full of fun when he entered the schoolyard. Several of his friends came up to him in sympathy. "Did he hurt you very much, Bert?" asked one. "He hurt me enough. It wasn't fair to come so close or to make the snowballs so hard." "Let us duck Danny in the snow," suggested one of the boys. This was considered a good plan, but nobody wanted to start in, for, as I have said before, Danny was a good deal of a bully and could get very rough at times. The only time a bully learns from being bullied is if there's no way they can retaliate, if they feel the helplessness, but then they will try and find a way to pay you back later. It doesn't actually change them, makes them worse. Usually. While the boys were talking the matter over, the school bell rang and all had to go to their classrooms. In a little while, Bert's ear stopped aching, but he did not forget how Danny Rugg had treated him. Rugg with 2 G's. There's lots of double letters added at the end of surnames in this book. Brisket, Rugg. And then you got Bobbsey. I don't know. "I'll pay him back when we go home to dinner," Bert told himself, and laid his plans accordingly. As soon as Bert got out of school, he hurried into a corner of the yard and made 3 good, hard snowballs. These he concealed under his overcoat and then waited for Danny to appear. The big boy must have known that Bert would try to square matters with him, for as soon as he came out, he ran in the direction of one of the main streets of Lakeport, just the opposite direction to that which he usually pursued. "You shan't get away from me," cried Bert, and ran after him. Soon he threw one snowball, and this landed on Danny's back. Then he threw another and knocked off the bully's cap. "Aye, stop that!" roared Danny, and stooped to pick up his cap. Whiz came the 3rd snowball and hit Danny on the cheek. He let out a cry of pain. "I'll fix you for that, Bert Bobbsey," he said, stooping down in the street. "How do you like that?" He picked up a large chunk of ice lying in the gutter, and now he threw it at Bert's head with all force. Bert dodged, and the ice went sailing past him and hit the show window of a small shoe store, shattering a pane of glass into 100 pieces. Chapter 4. The Broken Window. Neither Danny nor Bert had expected such an ending to the snowball fight, and for the moment neither knew what to do. Then, as the owner of the shoe store came running out, both set off on a run. "Stop! Stop!" roared the shoe dealer, coming after them. "Stop, I say!" But the more he cried stop, the harder they ran. Both soon reached the corner, and while Danny went up the side street, Bert went down, so the boys became widely separated. Reaching the corner, the owner of the store did not know which boy to go after, but made up his mind to follow Bert, who could not run as fast as Danny. So Bert's going to get in trouble even though he didn't throw the ice. So after Bert he came with such long steps that he was soon close to the lad. Bert was greatly scared, for he was afraid that if he was caught he might be arrested. What are parents telling their kids? That kids keep, in these stories, keep thinking they're going to get arrested for something. I don't know. Maybe we're using the police as a way to control our children's behaviour back then. Seeing an alleyway close at hand, he ran into this. At the back was a fence, and with all speed he climbed up and let himself down on the other side. Then he ran around a corner of a barn, through another alleyway and into a street leading home. The shoe dealer might have followed, but he suddenly remembered he'd left the store unprotected and that somebody might come in and run off with his stock and his money, so he went back in a hurry and the chase came to an end. When Bert got home, he was all out of breath and his legs trembled so he could scarcely stand. Nan had just arrived and the family were preparing to sit down to lunch. "Why, Bert, why do you run so hard?" protested his mother. "You must not do it. If you breathe in so much cold air, you may take cold, because there's germs in that cold air, and germs are what give you colds." Science. "You must not run so hard. You're going to fall down dead like a girl skipping too much." I don't know. "Oh, I'm all right," he panted and started to drop into his seat, but Mrs. Bobbsey made him go up to the bathroom and wash up and comb his hair. Poor Bert was in a fever of anxiety all through the meal. Every instant he expected to hear the front doorbell ring and find there was a policeman to take him to the station house. He could scarcely eat a mouthful. "What's the matter? Do you feel sick?" asked the father. The father. We've already had that about the mother." Asked father, asked mother. The father. "No, I'm not sick," he answered. "You play altogether too hard. Take it easy. The snow will last a long time," went on Mr. Bobbsey. "Since when do parents go round thinking that their kids are playing too hard or being too active? Like, get outside and go and play. That's what they all do. They've been doing it for generations. You skip too much. You run too hard." Is Mr. Stratemeyer trying to get parents to ease up on their kids or something? I don't know. After lunch, Bert did not dare go back to school, but he could think of no excuse for staying home and at last set off in company with Nan. He looked around for Danny, but the big lad did not show himself. "What's the matter with you, Bert?" questioned his twin sister as they trudged along. "Nothing's the matter, Nan." "But there is. You act so strange." I don't feel very good." "Then you did run too hard after all." "It wasn't that, Nan." Bert looked round him. "Do you see anything of Danny Rugg?" "No." Nan stopped short. "Bert Bobbsey, did you have a fight with him?" "No, that is, not a real fight. I chased him with some snowballs and he threw a big chunk of ice at me." Did he hit you?" "No, he... Oh, Nan, perhaps I'd better tell you, but you must promise not to tell anybody else." "Tell me what?" "Will you promise not to tell?" "Yes," said Nan promptly, for she and her twin brother always trusted each other. "When Danny threw the ice at me, it flew past and broke Mr. Ringley's window." "What, of the shoe store?" "Yes, Mr. Ringley came running out after both of us. I ran one way and Danny ran the other. I ran into the alleyway past Jackson's barn and got over the fence and he didn't come any further. Does Mr. Ringley think you broke the window?" "I guess he does. Anyway, he followed me and not Danny." "But you had nothing to do with it." "Oh, Bert, what made you run away at all? Why didn't you stop and tell the truth?" I got scared, that's why. I was afraid he would get a policeman." "Danny ought to own up that he did it." He won't do it. He'll put it off on me if he can, because I chased him in the first place. Did Mr. Ringley know it was you? I don't know, Nan. Nan, remember, you promised not to tell. All right, Bert, but I won't say a word. But what do you think Mr. Ringley will do? I don't know. When they reached the school, Danny Rugg was nowhere to be seen. The boys continued to have fun snowballing, but Bert had no heart for play and went to his classroom immediately. But he could not put his mind on his lessons and missed both in geography and arithmetic. So he didn't do well because he was distracted. Bert, you are not paying attention, said the teacher severely. You just said the capital of Pennsylvania was Albany. You must know better than that. Philadelphia, corrected Bert. Don't ask me. After this, pay more attention. Danny Rugg did not come to school, nor did he show himself until an hour after school was out. Bert had gone home and brought forth his sled, and he and Nan were giving Freddie and Flossie a ride around the block when Danny hailed Bert. Come here, I want to talk to you, he said from across the street. What do you want? Asked Bert roughly. I've got something to tell you. It won't take but a minute. Bert hesitated, and then leaving Nan to go on alone with the sled, he crossed to where Danny was standing, partly sheltered by a tree box. What is a tree box? You can't blame that broken window off on me, Danny Rugg. This is Bert. You can't blame that broken window off on me, Danny Rugg, he began. Hush, whispered Danny in alarm. I ain't going to blame it off on you, Bert. I only want you to promise to keep quiet about it. Why should I? It was your fault. Was it? I don't think so. You began the fight. Besides, if you dare say a word, I'll give you a big thrashing, blustered Danny. He clenched his fists as he spoke and looked so fierce that Bert retreated a step. I haven't said anything, Danny. Then you'd better not. Old Ringley doesn't know who broke his window, so you keep quiet. Do you hear? Are you sure he doesn't know? Yes, because he's been asking everybody about it. There was a pause, and the two boys looked at each other. You ought to pay for the window, said Bert. Huh, I'm not going to do it. You can pay for it if you want to, but don't you dare say anything about me. If you do, you'll catch it, I can tell you. And then Danny walked off. What did he have to say? Asked Nan when Bert came back to her. He wants me to keep still. He says Mr. Ringley doesn't know who did it. I think it's meant to say silent, but it says still. Did you promise to keep still, Bert? Maybe it's the way they used to say it back then. No, but if I say anything, Danny says he will give it to me. A crowd of boys and girls now came up and the talk was changed. All were having a merry time in the snow. We are down at halfway, 500 mils. That's what the marker's there. When it sits still long enough, it settles at that one. And for the time being, Bert forgot his troubles. He and Nan gave Freddie and Flossie a long ride, which pleased the younger twins very much. I wish you were really and truly horses, said Flossie. You go so beautifully, and if I had a whip, I would make you go faster, put in Freddie. For shame, Freddie, cried Nan. Would you hit the horse that gave you such a nice ride? Let me give you a ride, answered the little fellow to change the subject. He insisted upon it, and soon Nan was on the sled behind Flossie, and Bert and Freddie were hauling them along, where pulling was easy. This was great sport for Freddie, and he puffed and snorted like a real horse and kicked up his heels very much to Flossie's delight. Get up! Shrieked the little maiden. Get up! And moved back and forth on the sled to make it go faster. Away went Freddie and Bert as fast as the legs of the little fellow could travel. They went down a long hill and through a nice side street, and it was a good half hour before they reached home, just in time for a good hot supper. And that's the end of the chapter. Oh my goodness. So how I seriously thought it was going to be just, and then they got up, and then they played house, and then they had lunch, and then they watched somebody doing the cooking in the kitchen or doing the laundry or something like that, because it sounded like it was going to be really, really, really. But yeah, I wasn't expecting the tension of someone, not just a snowball fight, but also someone breaking a window and kids running away and possibly getting in trouble for it. But 75 books, the longest running children's book series. So things like Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, I think, are counted as a different age bracket, but not common to do that many books in one series for this age range. Chapter 5, Bert's Ghost. Finally, we can use the last water bottle of our 3. Ghost. It's written on the page, so I'm drinking to it. Bert felt relieved to learn that Mr. Ringley did not know who had broken the store window, but he was still fearful that the offence might be laid at his door. He was afraid to trust Danny Rugg, and did not know what the big boy might do. He may say I did it just to clear himself, thought Bert, and if Mr. Ringley comes after me, he'll remember me sure. But his anxiety was forgotten that evening, when some of the neighbours dropped in for a call. There was music on the piano and some singing, and almost before Bert and Nan knew it, was time to go to bed. Freddie and Flossie had already retired, worn out by their play. But after Bert had said his prayers and found himself alone in the small bedchamber he occupied, he could not sleep. The talk of the folks below him kept him awake at first, and even after they'd gone to bed, he could not forget the happening of the day, and he could still hear the crash of that glass as the chunk of ice went sailing through it. At last he fell into a troubled doze, with the bright light of the moon shining across the rug at the foot of the bed. Do people not use curtains, especially when it's cold weather? This house would not have double glazing like modern stuff to keep it warm inside. Why would you not have curtains over the window to keep the room warm? Especially if it's snowing outside. I don't know, this doesn't make any sense to me. Bright light of the moon shining across the rug at the foot of the bed. But the doze did not last long, and soon some kind of a noise awoke him with a start. He opened his eyes, and his gaze wandered across the moonlit room. Was he dreaming, or was that really a figure in white standing at the foot of his bed? Maybe it's the kind of house with large exterior shutters. That would work, except that, generally speaking, shutters have little louvers on them, or solid, and so the moonlight can't get in. That's one of the ideas. It's to keep the house inside a bit darker and cooler in summer, but darker for sleeping and things like this. It's a nice idea, but I still don't know that that would actually work. I think this is just one of those weird to make the story works things. Although, maybe they didn't believe in curtains. Takes all sorts, I guess. He opened his eyes, and his gaze wandered across the moonlit room. Was he dreaming, or was that really a figure in white standing at the foot of his bed? With a shiver he ducked down and covered his head with the blankets. For 2 or 3 minutes he lay quiet, expecting every instant to have something unusual happen, and then with great caution he pushed the blankets back and took another look. There was nothing there. But I saw something, he told himself. I'm sure I saw something. What could it have been? Now, at the foot of the bed, that's where the moonlight was. If it's that bright a moonlight, why is he wondering if he did see, there was something. I'll read the story. What could it have been? That was the question. For over an hour he continued to lie awake, watching and listening. Nan was in the next little chamber. Let's just call it a bedroom, thank you very much. And he was half of a mind to call her, but he was afraid she would call him a fraid cat, something he despised. The house is on a very slow turntable. Bert had heard of ghosts, And now he thought of all the ghost stories he could remember. Had the thing in white been a ghost? If so, where had it come from? 3 uses of the same word in one paragraph. 2 in one sentence. After a while he tried to dismiss the thing from his mind, but it was almost morning before he fell asleep again. This time he slept so soundly, however, that he did not rouse up until his mother came out and shook him. "Why, Bert, what makes you sleep so soundly this morning?" asked Mrs. Bobbsey. "Have you been running too much?" I didn't get to sleep until late," he stammered. And then he added, "Mamma, do you believe in ghosts?" "Why, of course not, Bert. What put that into your head?" "I thought I saw a ghost last night." "You must have been mistaken. There are no ghosts." "But I saw something," insisted the boy. "Where?" "Right at the foot of the bed. It was all white." "When was this?" "Right in the middle of the night." "Did you see it come in or go out?" "No, Mamma. When I woke up it was standing there, and when I took a second look at it, it was gone." "You must have been suffering from a nightmare, Bert," said Mrs. Bobbsey kindly. "You should not have eaten those nuts before going to bed." "Oh, yes, cheese gives you nightmares. Nuts also apparently make you dream of ghosts." "No. If your digestion is a little fragile, you will be restless. You will not sleep deeply. But cheese doesn't specifically give you nightmares, nor does nuts. Nor do nuts." "No, it wasn't a nightmare," said the boy. He had but little to say while eating breakfast, but on the way to school he told Nan, while Freddie and Flossie listened also. "Are we trying to terrorize our infant siblings?" "Oh, Bert, supposing it was a real ghost," said Nan. Is Nan getting an idea? Is Nan a prankster? Taking a deep breath. "Why, I'd be scared out of my wits. I know I'd be. Mamma says there are no ghosts, but I saw something, I'm sure of it." "I don't want to see any ghostses," came from Flossie. "Nor do I," said Freddie. "Sam told about a ghost once that was as high as a tree and had 6 heads to eat bad boys and girls up." "Did this have 6 heads, Bert?" "No." "How many heads did it have?" "I don't know. 1, I guess." "And was it high as a tree?" went on the inquisitive little fella. "Oh, it couldn't stand up in the room if it was as high as a tree," burst out Flossie. "Could if it was a tiny baby tree," expostulated Freddie. "It was about as high as that," said Bert, putting out his hand on a level with his shoulder. "I can't say how it looked, only it was white." "Perhaps it was moonshine," suggested Nan, but as Bert shook his head at that, Bert shook his head. He felt certain it had been more substantial than moonshine. "Maybe it was the cook popping her head in the door just to see that everyone was in bed, or Mother, or one of the guests." That day Danny Rugg came to school as usual. When questioned about his absence, he said he had had a toothache. When Bert looked at him, the big boy merely scowled, and no words passed between the pair. Directly behind Lakeport, was a long hill used during the winter by all the boys and girls for coasting. Louisa May Alcott book, Jack and Jill coasting. Major accident. Somebody who broke their spine. Somebody who was going to be wheelchair bound for quite some time. Yes. Trauma, etc., etc. Directly back of Lakeport was a long hill used during the winter by all the boys and girls for coasting. After school, Nan and Bert were allowed to go to this hill in company with a number of their friends. They were admonished to come back before dark and promised faithfully to do so. Who's taking Flossie and Freddie home? Among the boys, there was a great rivalry as to who could go down the hill the fastest and who could make a sled go the furthest after the bottom was reached. "I'll try my sled against yours," cried Charlie Mason to Bert. "Done," replied Bert. "Are you going down alone, or are you going to carry somebody?" "You must carry me down," insisted Nan. "Then I'll take Nellie Parks," went on Charlie. Nellie was close at hand, and soon the two sleds were side by side, with a girl on each. Bert and Charlie stood behind. "Are you ready?" asked Charlie. "Yes." "Then go!" Away went both lads, giving each sled a lively shove down the hill. Then each hopped aboard and took hold of the rope with which to steer. "A race! A race!" shouted those standing near. "I think Charlie will win," said some. "I think Bert will win," said others. "Oh, let us win if we can," whispered Nan to her twin brother. "I'll do my best, Nan," was the answer. Down the long hill swept the two sleds, almost side by side. Each was rushing along at a rope to steer has never worked for me. To me, it's more about not sledding with much skill, but it feels like if you lean more one way, it actually puts more pressure on that runner, so it should make an effect. And also, if you've got heels down against the snow, keeping one up and pushing one down should actually make it, if you're pushing down a little bit, so the heel of your boot is actually contacting the snow, should actually cause it to swing towards that one because of the friction. And if you meant something else entirely, then I'll do my best, Nan, was the answer. Down the long hill swept the two sleds, almost side by side. Each was rushing along at a lively rate of speed, and those aboard had to hold on tightly for fear of being jounced off. "Whoop!" roared Charlie. "Clear the track, for I am coming." "Make room for me," sang out Bert. "We are bound to win." The bottom of the hill was almost reached when Charlie's sled began to crawl a bit ahead. "Oh, Bert, they're going to beat us after all," cried Nan disappointedly. What does she expect you to do? It's gravity. That's it. Gravity and friction. "I knew we'd beat you," cried Nellie Parks. "Charlie's is the best sled on the hill." "The race isn't over yet," said Bert. His sled had been running in rather soft snow. Now he turned to where the coasting was better, and in a twinkling his sled shot forward until he was once more beside Charlie and Nellie. Why was he going down in the soft snow? "Here we come!" shouted Bert. "Make room, I say, make room!" On and on they went, and now the bottom of the hill was reached, and they ran along a level stretch. Charlie's sled began to slow up, but Bert's kept on and on until he had covered 100 feet beyond where Charlie had come to a stop. "We've won!" cried Nan excitedly. "Oh, Bert, your sled is a wonder!" "So it is," he answered with pride, "but it was a close race, wasn't it?" When they came back to where Charlie and Nellie stood, they found Charlie rather sulky. "Nellie's heavier than Nan," said he. "It wasn't a fair race. Let us try alone next time." "I thought it was more weight made it go faster." "I'm willing," answered Bert. "Gravity is so mean to me. It's always bringing me down," says Kuriki. Chapter 6, Coasting and What Came of It. Oh no! Flashbacks. What do you reckon? Is somebody gonna have an accident? Or is somebody gonna get in the way? It was a long walk back to the top of the hill, but Nan and Bert did not mind it. "So you won, did you?" said one of the boys to Bert. "Good enough." "We're going to try it over again," put in Charlie. "Come on." In the crowd was Danny Rugg, who had a brand new sled. "I guess I can beat anybody," cried Danny boastfully. "This new sled of mine is bang up." "What slang?" whispered Nan to Bert. "If I were you, I shouldn't race with him." "I'm going to race with Charlie," answered her twin brother, and took no notice of Danny's challenge. Bert and Charlie were soon ready for the test, and away they went amid a cheer from their friends. "I think Charlie will win this time," said Nellie. "And I think Bert will win," answered Nan. "Oh, you think your brother is wonderful," sniffed Nellie with a shrug of her shoulders. "He's just as good as any boy," said Nan quickly. Down the hill swept the two sleds, keeping side by side as before. They were but a foot apart, for each owner wished to keep on the hardest part of the slide. "Keep on your side, Bert Bobbsey," shouted Charlie warningly. "And you keep on yours, Charlie Mason," returned Bert. All of the others on the hill had stopped coasting to witness the contest, but now, with a whoop, Danny Rugg swept forward with his new sled and came down the hill at top speed. The bottom of the hill was barely reached when Charlie's sled made an unexpected turn and crashed into Bert's, throwing Bert over on his side in the snow. There you go. "What did you do that for?" demanded Bert angrily. I didn't do it. I guess you turned into me." "No, I didn't." Bert arose and began to brush the snow from his clothes. As he did so, he heard a rushing sound behind him, and then came a crash as Danny Rugg ran into him. Down he went again, and his sled had a runner completely knocked off. Bert was hit in the ankle and badly bruised. "Why didn't you get out of the way?" roared Danny Rugg roughly. "I yelled loud enough." "Oh, my ankle," groaned Bert. For the moment, the wrecked sled was forgotten. "Didn't touch your ankle," went on the big boy. "You did so, Danny. At least the point of your sled did," answered Bert. "You ran into me in the first place," came from Charlie. "Oh, Charlie, you know better than that." Bert tried to stand but had to sit down. "Oh, my ankle." "It wasn't my fault," said Danny Rugg, and began to haul his sled away. Charlie started to follow. "Don't leave me, Charlie," called out Bert. "I guess I can't walk." Charlie hesitated. Then, feeling in his heart that he was really responsible for running into Bert in the first place, he came back and helped Bert to his feet. "The sled is broken," said Bert, surveying the wreck dismally. "That was Danny's fault." "Well, then, he ought to pay for having it fixed." "He never pays for anything he breaks, Bert. You know that." Slowly and painfully, Bert dragged himself and his broken sled to the top of the hill, sharp, hot flashes of pain shooting through his bruised ankle. Nan ran to meet him. "Oh, Bert, what's the matter? Are you hurt?" she asked. "I didn't think the hill was big enough that they couldn't see them." "Yes, Danny ran into me and broke the sled. It wasn't my fault, I say," blustered the big boy. "You had a right to get out of the way." "It was your fault, Danny Rugg, and you'll have my sled mended." "Have to have my sled mended," cried Bert. Throwing down the rope of his own sled, Danny advanced and doubled up his fists as if to fight. "Don't you talk to me like that," he said surlily. "I don't like it." Bert's ankle hurt too much for him to continue the quarrel. He felt himself growing dizzy and he fell back. "Oh no, he's been skipping too much." "Is he dead?" "Let us go home," whispered Nan. "I'll ride you home if you can't walk," put in Charlie, who was growing alarmed. Tow him home on the sled. In the end, Bert had to accept the offer and home he went, with Charlie and Nan pulling him and with the broken sled dragging on behind. It was all he could do to get into the house, and as a consequence, Mrs. Bobbsey was much alarmed. She took off his shoe and stocking and found the ankle scratched and swollen and bathed it and bound it up. "You must lie down on the sofa," she said. "Never mind the broken sled. Perhaps your papa can fix it when he comes home." Bert detested playing the part of an invalid, but he soon discovered that keeping the ankle quiet felt much better than trying to walk around upon it. That night Mr. Bobbsey carried him up to bed, and he remained home for 3 days, when the ankle became as well as ever. The broken sled was sent to a nearby cabinet maker, and came back practically as good as new. "You must not have anything to do with Danny Rugg," said Mrs. Bobbsey to her son. "He is very rough and ungentlemanly." "Can't have this ungentlemanly business going on." "I'll leave him alone, Mamma, if he'll leave me alone," answered Bert. During those days spent at home, Nan did her best to amuse her brother. As soon as she was out of school, she came straight home and read to him and played games. Nan was also learning to play on the piano, and she played a number of tunes that he liked to hear. It's not always comfortable when someone's learning to play the piano. They were so much attached to each other that it did not seem natural for Nan to go out unless her twin brother could go out too. The first snowstorm had been followed by another, so that in the garden the snow lay deeper than ever. This was a great delight to Freddie and Flossie, who worked hard to build themselves a snow house. They enlisted the services of Sam the stableman, who speedily piled up for them a heap of snow much higher than their heads. "Now, children, there is the house," said the coloured man. "All you have to do is to clear out the insides." Then he went off to his work after starting the hole for them. I'd want it well patted down before hollowing it out so it doesn't just collapse. Flossie wanted to divide the house into 3 rooms, dining room, kitchen and bedroom, as she said, but Freddie objected. "'Tain't big enough," said the little boy. "Make one big room and call it everything." "But we haven't got an everything," said Flossie. "Well, then call it the parlour," said Freddie. "When it's done, we can put in carpet and 2 chairs for us to sit on." Just sit on the carpet. It was hard work for such little hands to dig out the inside of the heap of snow, but they kept at it. And at last the hole was big enough for Freddie to crawl into. "Oh, it's just beautiful," he cried. "Try it, Flossie." And Flossie did try and said the house was going to be perfect. "Only we must have a bay window," she added, "and a curtain, just like Mama." They continued to shovel away, and soon Freddie said he could almost stand up in the house. He was inside shoveling out the snow when while his twin sister packed what he threw out on the outside, as Sam had told them to do. So it's basically getting bigger and bigger. "Where shall I put the bay window?" asked the little boy presently. "On this side," answered Flossie, pointing with the shovel she held. At once Freddie began to dig a hole through the side of the pile of snow. "Be careful or the house will come down," cried Flossie at once, and hardly had she spoken when down came the whole top of the snow pile, and poor Freddie was buried completely out of sight. Snow. And also through the side of the pile of snow. And shoveling out the snow while his sister packed it on the outside. There you go. As long as she doesn't run off and do something else. Right, one more chapter, just one more. Chapter 7, Freddie and Flossie's Snow House. Have we got enough water to finish today's reading? "Freddie, Freddie," shrieked Flossie when she saw her twin brother disappear. "Do come out." But Freddie could not come out, and when after a few seconds he did not show himself, she ran toward the kitchen door, screaming at the top of her breath, "Oh, Dinah, Dinah, Freddie's buried, Freddie's buried." "What's that you say, Flossie?" demanded the cook, coming to the door. "Freddie's buried. The ceiling of the snow house came down on him." "Gracious sakes alive, child," burst out Dinah, and without waiting to put anything on her head, she rushed, because apparently you had to put a hat on when you went outside, she rushed forth into the garden. "Give me that shovel quick, he'll be suffocated for you know it. Yeah, and I'm not reading the way they've written it, because it would have been really easy to just change the way the words were written to make it sound less racist. Apparently it was considered to be acceptable back then. She began to dig away at the pile of snow and presently uncovered one of Freddie's lower limbs. Why not just say legs? Then she dropped the shovel and tugged away at the limb. So you're going to use alternative phrasing instead of using an actual word, and then you're going to repeat a word from that alternative phrasing because you can't reuse words. She began to dig away at a pile of snow and presently, I've already drunk that one, presently uncovered one of Freddie's lower limbs. Yes. Definitely, it's a brick wall moment. Put that one up there. See if it stays up there for now. Thank you for calling it. Presently uncovered one of Freddie's lower limbs. Then she dropped the shovel and tugged at the limb and presently brought Freddie to view, just as Mrs. Bobbsey and Nan appeared on the scene. So, is leg a rude word? Somebody? Is the word leg considered rude in 1904? We cannot say it in a children's book. What in the world is the matter? Questioned Mrs. Bobbsey in alarm. That child gone and buried himself alive, responded the cook. The roof of the snow house caved in on him, poor dear. He's most suffocated. Most as in almost. In the meantime, Freddie was gasping for breath. Then he looked at the wreck of the snow house and set up a tremendous roar of dismay. Oh, Flossie, it's all spoilt, the bay window and all. Never mind, Freddie, dear, said his mother, taking him? Okay. Be thankful that you were not suffocated, as Dinah says. Yes, but Flossie and... No, it's Keanu, most. Huh? You've lost me. Never mind. Yeah, but Flossie and me were making an everything house with a parlour and a bay window and everything, and I didn't want it to fall down. Freddie was still gasping, but now he struggled to the ground. His mum's holding on to him, I guess. Want to build it again, she added. I'm afraid you'll get into trouble again, Freddie. No, I won't, Mamma. Do let us build it up again, pleaded the little fellow. I can watch them from the door, suggested Dinah. Let me help them, Mamma, put in Nan. Bert is reading a book, so he won't want me for a while. Very well, Nan, you stay with them, but all of you be careful, said Mrs. Bobbsey. After that, the building of the snow house was started all over again. The pile of snow was packed down as hard as possible, and Nan made Flossie and Freddie do the outside work while she crept inside and cut around the ceiling and the bay window just as the others wanted. It was great sport, and when the snow house was finished, it was large enough and strong enough for all of them to enter with safety. Tonight, I'll pour some water over that house, said Sam. That'll make the snow as hard as ice. This was done, and the house remained in the garden until spring came. Later on, Bert built an addition to it, which he called the library, and in this he put a bench and a shelf on which he placed some old magazines and story papers, comic books. In the main part of the snow house, Freddie and Flossie at first placed an old rug and 2 blocks of wood for chairs and a small bench for a table. Then, when Flossie grew tired of the house, Freddie turned it into a stable in which he placed his rocking horse. Then he brought out his iron fire engine and used the place for a firehouse, tying an old dinner bell on a stick stuck over the doorway. Dong, dong would go the bell, and out he would rush with his little engine and up the garden path looking for a fire. Let's play you're regular firemen, said Flossie on seeing this. You're a regular fireman. You must live in the firehouse, and I must be your wife and come to see you with the baby. And she dressed up in a long skirt and paid him a visit with her best doll on her arm. Freddie pretended to be very glad to see her and embraced the baby. But a moment later he made the bell ring and, throwing the baby to her, rushed off again with his engine. That wasn't very nice, pouted Flossie. Dorothy might have fallen in the snow. 4-year-old. Can't help it, answered Freddie. A fireman can't stop for anything. But he doesn't have to throw his baby away, does he? Questioned Flossie with wide open eyes. Yes, he does. Everything. But supposing he's eating his dinner. He has to throw it away, Flossie. Oh, it's awful hard to be a real fireman. Would he have to just throw his jam away and his pie? Yes. Then I wouldn't be a fireman, not for a house full of gold, said Flossie, and marched back into the house with her doll. Flossie's dolls were 5 in number. Dorothy was her pride and had light hair and blue eyes and 3 dresses, one of real lace, as opposed to... The next was Gertrude, a short doll with black eyes and hair and a travelling dress that was very cute. Then came Lucy, who had lost one arm, and Polly, who had lost both an arm and a leg. The 5th doll was Jujube, a coloured boy dressed in a fiery suit of red with a blue cap and real rubber boots. This doll had come from Sam and Dinah and had been much admired at first, but was now taken out only when all the others went too. So the novelty's worn off. He doesn't really belong to the family, you know, Flossie would explain to her friends, but I have to keep him for Mamma says there's no coloured orphan asylum for dolls. Besides, I don't think Sam and Dinah would like to see their doll child in an asylum. The dolls were all kept in a row in a big bureau drawer at the top of the house, but Flossie always took pains to separate him from the rest by placing the cover of a pasteboard box between them. And there you have inherent racism that has been bred into the family by seeing behaviours that there must be separation. That, yes, I would have removed, unless it's actually key to the story. With so much these days, you can get dolls of all sorts of different skin colours. When my kids were little, not very common. They were all white dolls. And I do remember people who, with a Maori background or Polynesian or anything that wasn't white, being a little bit feeling left out, that there weren't dolls that represented them. And what was lovely was when we were over in England, my daughter used to play with, when we would visit friends, the friend had a doll that used to be hers, and she had grown up in Africa. And she had a brown doll. And Anita used to love playing with this doll because it was a very real baby-looking doll sort of thing. And in the end, this friend actually gave her the doll and said, I've only got boys. They're not interested. I would like you to have this doll. And I think it's still in storage in one of our storage boxes somewhere. She's had it all that time, and it's just been with her all of her growing up, because it was just a real entity. It wasn't just a token gesture. And that's the difference. It's not this whole sort of like, well, that's other. Doesn't need that. With so much snow on the ground, it was decided by the boys of that neighbourhood to build a snow fort, and this work was undertaken early on the following Saturday morning. Luckily, Bert was by that time well enough to go out, and he did his fair share of the labour, although being careful not to injure his sore ankle. So we've got 2 snows. One. 2. Okay. We're getting there, look. 3/4 of the way through it. The fort was built at the top of a small hill in a large open lot. It was made about 20 feet square, and the wall was as high as the boys' heads and over a foot thick. In the middle was gathered a big pile of snow, and into this was stuck a flagpole from which floated a nice flag loaned by a boy named Ralph Blake. Let us divide into 2 parties of soldiers, said Ralph. One can defend the fort and the others can attack it. Hurrah! Just the thing, cried Bert. When shall the battle begin? The boys talked it. I can't see him not hurting his ankle. Can you? The boys talked it over, and it was decided to have the battle come off after lunch. The boys went home full of enthusiasm, and soon the news spread that a real soldiers' battle was to take place on the lot. Oh, Bert, can't I go and look on? Asked Nan. I want to go too, put in Flossie. Can't I be a soldier? Asked Freddie. I can make snowballs and throw 'em too. No, Freddie, you are too little to be a soldier, answered Bert. But you can all come and look on if you wish. After lunch, the boys began to gather quickly until over... Sorry, I've just realised. Shame bottle. Yeah. A really big one. for the thing with the dolls. After lunch, the boys began to gather quickly until over 20 were present. Many girls and a few grown folks were also there who took places out of harm's way. How do you stay out of the way of a snowball being thrown? Now remember, said a gentleman who was placed in charge, no icy snowballs and no stones. Well, remember, Mr. Potter, cried the young soldiers. The boys were speedily divided into two parties, one to attack and one to defend the fort. It fell to Bert's lot to be one of the attacking party. Without loss of time, each party began to make all the snowballs it could. The boys who remained in the fort kept out of sight behind the walls, while the attacking party moved to the back of the barn at the corner of the big lot. "Are you all ready?" shouted Mr. Potter presently. A yell of assent came from nearly all of the young soldiers. "Well then, the battle may begin." Some of the boys had brought horns along, and now a rousing blast came from behind the barn and then from the snow fort. "Come on and capture the fort," cried the Bert, and led the way with his arms full of snowballs. There was a grand cheer, and up the hill rushed the young soldiers, ready to capture the snow fort no matter what the cost. And that is the end of the chapter. And today's reading. Look, we still have a little bit of water left in it. There you go. That is... No, it's not 32 ounces, because that's the full bottle. It's half a cup left, and that's a 4-cup bottle. There you go. I'm going to be rushing off to the loo after this. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. It's been lots of fun. I was wondering how they were going to cope with having the little kids and the bigger kids. I can see now why it would appeal to actually have the younger kids getting a little bit older, a little bit less babyish, and having the older kids just being a little bit older again. It does make for easier storytelling, just because of the way things work, I guess. But thank you for being here, everybody, and come back next time for more. No word on the craft project, by the way. Yeah, so I'm going to be having my anniversary of my first stream late. We know that now, very definitely late. So thanks for being here. Look after yourselves. Stay